Good morning, seventh grade Mighty Scots. I hope you all had a wonderful weekend and you're ready for a great week of school. Today's lesson is about labels, stereotypes, and prejudice. We're going to be talking about what these words mean and what are some different steps that you can take when you hear them being used. So, by nature, human beings, we sort and classify things. So, if I were to give you a bunch of school supplies, you probably organize the pencils together, you probably would put the paper together, the paper clips together. You'll probably group things by their uses and the names that we've given them. And so this tendency to sort information and to classify things, and we actually do the same thing with people as well. So we try to sort people into groups with common characteristics and give those groups a label. However, labels define people very narrowly. And when we do this, we're actually neglecting a lot of things that make people unique. And so when we use labels or call people names, we also are doing a lot of harm, right? Because we are neglecting, again, the things that make that person who they are. We may be calling them a label that they don't agree with or don't like. And we need to make sure we are calling people by their preferred name instead of giving them a nickname or a label that they may not like or may not identify with. So labels might describe, among other things, gender, race, interests, physical appearance, or personal styles. And labels, they can lead to us using or believing in stereotypes. So a stereotype is an assumption you make about someone or a group of people because of how they're labeled. I'm sure you've all heard at some point in time a stereotype. So I'll give you a few seconds to think of one. You don't have to share it with your group. Okay, so I'm going to share two examples. One example of a stereotype is all jocks are dumb, right? Another one is all Asians are good at math. These are probably stereotypes that you've heard before. And even though one of them may sound positive and one of them sounds negative, they're both actually harmful because we're making an assumption about an entire group of people and we have no idea if the assumption that we're making is true or not. And so when this happens, imagine how the person, let's say there's a student who identifies as being Asian, and math isn't their strongest subject. How do you think that a stereotype like that makes them feel, right? So using stereotypes, it can lead to bullying and injustice, right? And so one of the consequences that can lead to is all or nothing thinking. So all or nothing thinking is believing that all members of a group are a certain way, or all members of a group are not a certain way. For instance, all jocks are dumb, right? So obviously, when we make these general statements, it's not going to be true about every single person in the group. And when we do this, we're actually losing out on the individual identities of each person in that group because we're lumping everybody all together. And this can also cause us to mistreat people. So, for instance, if I have someone who I meet and I automatically, let's say, I'm going back to my other example of a jock, right? So, if I meet someone who I label as being a jock and I believe that jocks are dumb, then that can cause me to treat that person as if they are dumb without me even knowing anything about them or their level of intelligence. And so, it can cause us to mistreat other people. It can also cause us to have an us versus them attitude where we actually separate ourselves from other people and we feel that it's us against them because of a stereotype that we believe to be true, right? And so this also it can lead to bullying. So what kind of bullying is related to labels and stereotypes do you see in our school? This is something to think about and reflect upon. So, one of the biggest reasons why we're talking about this is because of bystander power. So, research shows that when student bystanders take action against bullying, the bullying usually stops. When you see something, you have a lot of power to stand up against it. So, this week we're going to talk about how you can use that power in a positive way to help in the perpetuation of some of these really negative stereotypes that we see. So, stereotypes can become particularly hurtful and even dangerous when they are applied to racial, ethnic, and religious groups and to people's sexual orientation. So, when this happens, prejudices are formed. So a prejudice, it is a prejudgment or an assumption about someone else. And this happens when we tie those stereotypes to a particular racial, sexual orientation, or ethnic group. Okay. And so we have to be careful about stereotypes, but especially careful about prejudices because it means that we're targeting a specific group or a specific ethnic identity. And so, one of the biggest things to help with this is by using empathy. Most of you have probably heard the word empathy before. Oftentimes, we think about it as standing in someone else's shoes, or we think about the golden rule of treat others how you want to be treated. So, empathy, it's the ability to identify, understand, and respond thoughtfully to the feelings and the perspectives of others. So, to use empathy, we need to identify how someone else may be thinking or feeling and respond in a thoughtful way. And we need to understand also with empathy when we've hurt someone else. So if we have said something like a stereotype that is harmful to someone, we need to understand when we've hurt someone else, or we need to understand when someone else might be hurt by something that someone has said. And then we need to make sure we step in and try to advocate for that person if we can. And so this week, we're really going to be focusing on understanding the damaging effects that stereotypes, prejudice, and labels can have. And we're going to talk about using empathy to stand up for what is right. And we're also going to get a chance to practice saying some different or using some different phrases that you can say to step in and advocate when you see these things occur. So, I hope you all enjoy this week's lesson. I hope you find it to be really helpful and also engaging. And if you all would like to pop in my office hours and talk about any of the things that we're discussing this week, remember I have office hours Mondays through Fridays from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. All right. Well, I hope you all enjoy your day. I will see you later.